to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So the first order of business would be to approve the agenda. Somebody wants to make an adjustment on the agenda? Are there any adjustments to the agenda?
You want to move the discussion up?
Yes.
I move that we move the discussion on Devon's Crest up to the top.
Okay. All right.
Let's select
all
Devon's
those in
Crest right now.
favor? Aye.
Talk about us right now.
Okay. So the agenda is amended. So the Devon's Crest discussion on Devon's Crest will be our first item. And so we can go ahead and do that.
Sure.
All right, so I just wanted to report on a meeting that, the town had with, the tenants association, Connie Sullivan, Attorney Connie Sullivan, the town's, manager's office, and the town office of community and economic development. And I know a couple of people that are here in the audience were at that meeting. And what was agreed at that point was that the town would try to set up a meeting with, Brady Sullivan to talk about extensions on the eviction notices that we both received. And at this point, we have reached out to Brady Sullivan, and it looks like it's gonna happen. They said they would take, we talked to them about what the tenants association is looking for, and it looks like it's not gonna happen this week, but probably will happen next week. A lot of people are on vacation right now, so we will be back to you on that. And they said that they had made arrangements with a number of tenants, but that they would take under consideration the possibility of doing a group extension. I don't know what that means. They still are kind of, here comes Ken, they're putting forward that they would like to have it be individual, but that's what we're trying to do, is help do a group extension. Okay? Robert Condrian, the town manager, talked to, I don't know if Rick talked to the tenants association about what he said, but he discouraged the concept that it would be possible to all move down so that the town would be able to take it by eminent domain. The process is very long and expensive. And one of the things that was brought forward was that if something was gonna be done, it would need to be done by a nonprofit organization, putting everybody together. Oh, I thought you were there too, John. Sorry, and there was a select board member there too. So this is just a synopsis of it, and I don't know what you wanna do. Do you wanna open it up for discussion or questions?
Yeah. So we can open up for some public input. I just asked, some of you may have been here at the select board meeting, some of you might not have been. If you are going to choose to for public input, just address the chair, keep it to 2 minutes. And yeah, that's about it. So is there anybody that would like to address the board?
Okay.
No, you're good.
Oh, and even though I might know some of your names, we might just state your name
Yeah,
and
for public
your address
record.
for, yes.
Do you want me to come up there or stay here?
You can do it either way.
Oh.
Ken will grab a chair.
Thanks, Ken.
Thanks, Ken.
You will?
You.
You will? You'll hold my phone?
Oh, sure.
Do you want
Thank
to
you.
officially open?
I'll let you continue.
Open for the, if he opens for the trustee,
Right.
open for the time.
It's now 7:10, I'm gonna officially open as well for the Affordable Housing Committee, now that we do have a forum.
Okay. Formalities are out.
Okay.
Go ahead.
The chair is who? Good evening to the chair and
the other members of the board? Board, right, is it a committee or?
We have both,
Oh, okay.
the board, and
Okay, so-
again, we can go ahead and introduce ourselves, but we do have both the board and the committee.
Oh, okay. So I was just wondering, I know that there was
Name,
discussion.
Denise.
Oh, I'm sorry, my name is Denise Pearl, I live at 181 Willow Street in Ayer. So I just have a question about, there was a discussion about, developing affordable housing down the road. So I'm just curious to know if an application was ever submitted to DHCD, because that's the first part of the process, is submitting an application for approval. So unless it starts at some point, then we'll just keep hearing, we're thinking about it, but I'm just wondering what.
So if you take a look at the agenda, that is on the agenda, the application has been received by the town and
Oh.
DHCD. So,
Oh, I apologize, I wasn't clear about it, so that's why I wanted to.
yeah,
No, better to ask.
So as far as Grady Sullivan, so what is the bottom line with them? They said that,
well, this was the initial discussion that happened through the town manager's office. And they were setting up the meeting and telling them what we were asking for. And what we were asking for is what came up at that meeting with the town tenants association and Connie Sullivan and select board and manager's office and economic, which is community development. And what we had left it at was that we were gonna be talking for time, because until you get time, it's just ticking clock right now. So looking for, and they requested upper management, upper people involved in Grady Sullivan, so we will be talking to the town.
and so I hope we're talking about a variety of different things too, not just stuck on one in case that doesn't hear. There is state and federal funds, isn't there, to access? And isn't there a way to get the loan through the state and they give you a low percentage and they spread it out over a long period of time? Because I just looked at something about Lawrence and they got some funding for affordable housing. And the loan was like, it wasn't something that they had to pay in like 20 years, it was like really a long loan, so it kept payments low. And then so the state pays some portion of it and then the town pays it, so it's not always on the town's.
That's usually done through a nonprofit, and you've had a number of nonprofit groups at your meetings, and I think that you should be reaching out to them. The town sometimes works with the nonprofits. The project that we're looking at, we're gonna be working with the nonprofit. But you do need a nonprofit to be involved in that, because the town's not gonna do it all on their own.
Okay, because I was reading, I was just like telling you what I'm reading, so maybe it'll clarify. So I actually like looked on the DHCD, and I'm aware of mass development, and they said that it's up to the town, and the first step is the application. So I'm unclear, and obviously I want to learn more about, the actual finding the nonprofits. But when I was in Lawrence, and they did that kind of thing. It was like the town.
I'd like to tell you about the project that I worked on in Groton.
Okay.
Okay, and because I don't want you to think, I've been working on, affordable housing for many, many years. And I just want a realistic concept of what is a possible in affordable housing. So I'm gonna tell you about a project that you probably all know about, but you don't know it's affordable housing. So when you go down Sandy Pond Road, right before you get to Shaw's, there's 9 townhouses right before you get to Shaw's. When I was on the Housing Authority in Groton, I'm sorry.
I know, it's hard to breathe.
Okay, so when I was on the Housing Authority in Groton, we had a zoning law that required developers to give something towards affordable housing. So when Dave Moulton was building the property behind there, he owed the town property or units to affordable housing. And it's a formula, so it's about a certain amount of money. So we agreed with him that he gave us that piece of land, and he built us 9 units. And the town had to pay the affordable price for those units. So those are all two-bedroom townhouses, it's family housing there. And we paid $169, which is a going price for an affordable unit there, to him. He gave us all the land, and he did all the building, because it costs more than $169 to build a new unit. And he built those, and we went to mass development for our mortgage. Our mortgage with soft cost and other, it was between this is 15 years ago, so I don't remember totally. But the soft cost and the unit cost, it was about a $1.7 to $2 million project. But sitting on that board for the next 5 years while I was there, I'm not on the board anymore, I saw all the monthlies. We had 2 units at under 50% rental, and we rented them for about $750. And then we had 7 units at moderate, and we rented them. First, we were renting them for $980, and we weren't breaking even on that. And that's 9 units at just under $2 million. Okay, and they were brand new units. So we actually brought those up to about, because we were still under the rate, we brought them up to like $1,025, which was still a good rate for a brand new townhouse unit, 2 bedrooms. And the housing authority over in Groton had reserves and things like that, so we were able to make it work. But you know, sometimes somebody moves out and they trash the unit, and you have to go in and put in all new carpeting, you have to paint, you have to do all that kind of stuff. So those were the numbers that we had at the 169. We got the land for free, and it was barely something that we could keep afloat as a town without subsidies from the state. Yes, there's money out there for these projects. Everything that I look at, because of what the developer paid for the Devon's Crest units, the numbers don't work. It's not that we're not trying to help you, it's just that the numbers don't work. You know, and it's very expensive to build and renovate units. And I've been in there renovating private properties in there with my housing rehab program. And so I know what the renovations are. Now, the possibility is getting the extension and possibly getting a nonprofit. I mean, getting a nonprofit who wants to put the package together. If somebody can put the package together, the town will work with you. But the town, you know, we have a number of other projects. The projects we're going to be presenting tonight is 106 units, and it's going to cost the town around some infrastructure and around $300,000. So that's a lot different than the millions and millions we're talking about. And it's not that we're not sensitive to the fact that you have a community and that you have, you know, and that you need this housing and that you're being displaced. We're very sensitive to that. We're looking for ways to help. But we also have to know, and this is what Robert brought up at that meeting that we all had, was he does not believe. And I think there's a number of people that would agree that it will pass eminent domain. So that's the chair. So somebody's here, but after Denise is here, and afterwards you can be recognized, Connie.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'd like to, I don't know if you could probably look up the Lawrence project that I just saw an article on it, and Governor Baker released, I can't remember how many millions of dollars for an affordable housing
But
project.
who did it go to? That's the whole thing. Did it go to the town of Lawrence, or did it go to a
City.
Or, I'm sorry, the city of Lawrence? Did the money go to the city itself, or did it go to some nonprofit developer?
To be perfectly honest with you, I don't want to say one way or the other, because I read it, I went to an event with Senator Warren last night, and I stopped at McDonald's and I was reading on it.
Okay.
So I kind of don't remember all of it,
All
but
right.
it would be a good idea just to even look up to see what it's.
We'll take a peek at it and such, because from what I'm understanding from Alicia and, you know, from what the meeting is, It just needs to have some sort of entity to go ahead and present that paperwork to the state to say, we look for this money. The town itself, will get money for rental assistance and things like that, that will go through, Alicia's office. But I don't think, again, that, for development wise, it has to be some sort of, entity to go ahead and apply.
I'm not sure if that's always the case, but I'm not,
Yeah.
trying to say you're right or
Yeah,
right.
but this would be something.
But, I know I was talking to Rep. Tammy Duvia today, and, she was saying something about there's a list of projects of development.
Oh,
And so I said to her, who has the list? She said, I don't know, I'll look around for you.
I mean, there are lists, projects.
There's a lot of projects.
Yeah,
right. But
But
the
a lot
question-
of them have been in the works for 5 years. The one I'm presenting has been in the works for 2 years.
Yeah. So I guess the question, or, the inquiry I would like to know is, does it always have to be that road? I know it's either nonprofit or profit, and are there other routes available for taking a loan out? Because I read about that, that's what it said in that Lawrence article, that they took the loan out, and, they had the loan for a long period of time. So I don't know exactly, I don't want to say one way, whatever, like all the details, but I know what you're
So
saying.
can I just explain one more thing?
Yeah.
So the project that we're gonna be looking at tonight, about 6 or 8 months ago, maybe it was all the way last fall, I can't remember, my life gets really busy. We got a call from CDAC, my office. CDAC is one of the programs that funds these projects. And they wanted to find out where the town stood on this, what we thought about the developer, all this kind of stuff. And was it something that they should even be considering to look at? So the process even with funding, so that was a funding call that I think happened last fall. So, but it was all.
I know, it's a lot of stuff.
But so yes, all those processes, and at that point, the engineering was probably at about 50% done. When they were talking to CDAC and seeing if they could possibly get funding and all that kind of stuff. So there's all these conversations that happen. And the lane, they had already put out a lot of money for the engineering and all that sort of thing. Then they were calling and seeing where the town was. The developer has been to the land use committee multiple times now to just talk and say, okay, is the town feeling about this? And we're just bringing this forward because it has been now filed with the state. So that is part of the process, yes.
And I hope there's, going to be 30% area median income units as well, because.
We're working
We're
on
working
that.
on
Did you ever hear, I believe it's Mass Coalition for the Homeless, there's a few different organizations, and they have a lot of, information about what the percentages are about.
We already distributed last meeting,
Yeah.
what the dollar amounts were for the median income for being 30, 50, and 80%. So that's, again,
Yeah. All right, well, thank you so much. Oh, thank you so much.
I'm sorry, Sean.
No, that's all right. I'll talk. I just want to make a brief couple of statements, guys. So,
Your name?
sorry, my name is Rick Harmon. Am I talking directly to Janet, or? You can. So, I just wanted to tell you that, in regards to the dollar figures and the amount that we were talking about during that meeting, with the town manager's office, we're not talking about the entirety of Devon's Crest. We're talking about the people that are staying, that they want to stay. They want to stay in their homes, not the people that are going and they found other places to live. They've had other opportunities. We're talking about the people that are actually staying by part of this association. We're talking about 44 homes. So the figures you're talking about are different. So I just wanted to say that for one. Two, I wanted to also say that I spoke to Senator Eldridge today, as well as Dan Cena. Senator Eldridge said that he was actually going to have a meeting with the Housing Ways and Means Commission, or committee,
try to get access to the $5 million in federal relief funds, as well as we were gonna talk to CDAP, who you just mentioned earlier. So I just wanted to let you guys know that, if you guys were that, clarify that one issue that I thought that was a bit of a discrepancy.
I think that's great, and that's why having a tenants association is important, but also working to form your own, your own group that's negotiating to put the project together. Because there's all sorts of parties that have to come to the table to make it happen.
I agree with you. I'm trying to work on that now. I'm learning this as I'm going, and doing the best I can. I try to help the people know. And so I'm working with the senator, and hopefully provide some good information on how to access those funds. So,
That'd be excellent.
and I'll certainly provide that guys
And
information.
what
you guys
happened
want.
with the gentleman from, I forgot his name, from Acton, who has put together a number of projects? I had his,
Matthew Shaw.
what's that?
Talk about Matthew Shaw.
Bob Van Meter?
The one from the first meeting, from City Lights.
Royale.
So, there's another one, there was a gentleman from Acton for the second meeting, one of the gentlemen, and I spoke with them, and they put together these groups multiple times. I will go back and get their names and phone numbers.
I would greatly appreciate that. I'd love to
Okay,
speak
I
with them.
have them on my list, so I can send that to you.
I did hear some word from City Light in regards to an organization talking about or possibly providing the funds. We're in the preliminary stages of talking about discussing this, so I haven't had enough information to really verify or even clarify what they're talking about. So until we actually speak with them and the board actually get to speak with this organization, I
Well,
can't.
what they were talking about was helping you do the organizational part of it, okay? And they're from Acton, and one's from Acton, one's from, anyway, they're very interesting, but there was a lot happening that night, so, but I do
I
have.
would
the
work
names.
with anyone to try to get them help and try to keep them in their homes as long as possible. So whoever that is, if it's from Acton, if it's from Boston or New Jersey, I don't care. So I'll do whatever it is to try to keep these people in their homes. And that was it, guys. Thank you very much.
Rick, I got a question
Yeah,
for
sure,
you.
of course.
Out of those 44 homes,
Yeah.
have they all been in contact with Connie Sullivan to ask for extensions?
I am not aware of that or not. I did not actually ask them that question directly in all of those homes. We have a meeting tomorrow. I can ask the people who's gonna attend, but I can't verify that that's gonna be all of those people that are on part of our association. That wasn't one of the questions that I asked on our forum.
Okay.
That's a good question. I just have not actually asked that question.
Because I know, like, there were some of the discussions were, some people have asked and they've gotten
I've heard that that's
extensions.
some issues getting in touch with Kim. Some others haven't. So it's here or there. I can't really speak on that because I don't want to say anything one way or the other in regards to that. I know I reached out to them directly to try to see if they can be able to negotiate with us in this town. But I guess kind of a better luck than I did in that instance. So
Okay, all right.
look forward to it.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
All right, I'll take over the chair, so it's not as confusing now that we have a forum. All right, is there any other comments? Connie? Again, I'm just reiterating, you do know who you are, but it's in your name and
Connie Sullivan from 700 Main Street here. 30 plus year resident of the town, 12-year former selectman. I was at the meeting that took place earlier this week with the town, and was just surprised at the initial foray, if you will, from the town administrator, indicating that the project is too big, too expensive, and we don't have the manpower to manage anything like the eminent domain of Devon's Crest. And quite frankly, I agree with him. And what I tried to explain to him is that we're not talking about the scope that he has and envisioned. We're not talking about 110 units at Devon's Crest. We're talking about at most 45 families, so maybe 45 units. Right? So the scope is less than half of what the town was anticipating. Eminent domain also is not a choice of the first choice of the tenants. It's a choice of last resort. But we need all of the options on the table. And if any of you have ever played cards, you don't put your hand down in poker and show everybody what you got.
No, you use the glasses for that.
And before the town takes a position that one of the options should be taken off the table entirely, before we even begin engaging in some constructive discussion with the property owner, Connie Sullivan, I would respectfully suggest that the town keep all the options on the table. Aside from scope, Robert Pomperian also brought up cost, indicating that the project that Connie Sullivan bought, the Evans Cross project, was roughly 11.8 million. We went into eminent domain, there's all kinds of soft costs, there's appraisals, there's potential litigations, which could drive the cost up. And then, again, that's for 110 units. We also don't envision doing this as a town if that option of last resort is the only option that we have left by ourselves. It would be essential for the state to partner with the town of Ayer.
Which goes back to.
Exactly. I also spoke to the Senator Eldridge yesterday.
Okay.
And again, he did reiterate that he would be speaking with the House Ways and Means Committee to see how access can be made to the $5 billion in funds that the state is sitting on for housing. So I would expect the state, if there was some kind of a taking or an affordable housing option, the state to assume the lion's share of that cost. The third issue that Robert Pomperian brought up was the lack of manpower.
Okay, hold on a second. You just have one question with regard to Senator. I'm sorry.
There's bad information on the resort. Robert Pontman actually could clarify what the meeting that you went to with him the other day.
It was by Zoom. Robert was there, Carly Antonelli, the assistant
So
town manager.
we presume that Robert doesn't represent the town, or does he, rather than committee, Mike?
It is his belief that we will not be successful with the eminent domain. And it's his belief that it is a very long process to do eminent domain, even for part of the property. So, that was his position.
So I'm just trying to clarify, I'm not sure that Robert necessarily represents the entire feeling of the town. So I'm taking a side of the guy. Robert is giving the best estimate of what he thinks the feeling of the town would be, basically. And then I just wanted to, as far as the eminent domain, Attorney Sullivan, do you know of any other situation in the state where this has occurred, where a state has been able to come in Massachusetts and take a property with eminent domain?
Yes.
Is there any history of that?
Do you have any?
Do you know about?
When you say take a property,
No, I'm
I
saying,
don't know if it's the housing or not, but
the way you are proposing that eminent domain is last resort. Do we have any history of that happening? It's been able to pull that off in the state?
well, our town itself took property.
I know that. We're taking four houses.
Yeah, Ken's looking for housing, right?
I'm just trying to clarify that an actual process could happen, as a legitimate process.
The eminent domain, the focus of the eminent domain is for a public purpose. And my argument is, and I can't answer your question directly, I haven't done the research, I mean, I've only come into this in the last 30 days, during perhaps one of the busiest real estate transactions periods in our history, at least in my practice as an attorney for 39 years. So I've had my focus really at work, and I've been trying to help out the Devon's Crest Tenants Association as much as I can. But I know that if there is an eminent domain taking, it is to be for a public purpose. And given the backdrop of the pandemic, the just acceleration of property values that we've never seen before, and what's happening at Devon's Crest with families, and it's not necessarily that they want to just stay in their unit. These are families making $25,000 to $35,000 a year. They're working hard. They're in a lot of our service industries. it's a group of families that don't have a lot of options. You know, in prior years, we could always hopscotch to Leominster or Fitchburg and find cheaper housing. It's not cheap there anymore, that's the problem.
Yeah, we've been talking about this for a long time.
Yeah. So, you know, these are families that don't have options, and need time, and they need the support of our town. I mean, one of the issues I raised with Robert was, all right, so if we don't do an eminent domain taking and all other options have failed, what is the plan B for the town when we end up with the families out on the lawn of town hall because they got no other place to go? I mean, we don't have short-term housing for people that are homeless. So, you know, if we're not going to be keeping all options on the table as we engage Brady Sullivan, then we should be coming up with that plan B on what are we doing for 45 families that may not have a home and will be camped out in front of town hall. So, you know, one of Robert's concerns was not having manpower to even manage a housing project. And of course, you know, you have this trust. You have an affordable housing committee as well, which can hire personnel, right? Doesn't have to.
My recommendation is that it should not be owned by the town. The liability of it being owned by the town is very serious. And that's why I keep saying a nonprofit. And in most towns, when they do development like this, they go through a nonprofit. It changes the costs, it changes everything. Because as soon as the town owns that, a number of those units is our belief, we don't know because we haven't been in it, will not be decoded. The moment the town owns it, they will have to move everybody into a hotel and then start repairing them. Because the town is not allowed to have substandard housing.
So whether it's a trust or it's a nonprofit, there's the point to be made is there's other personnel that could be utilized to manage a project. It's not necessarily the current staff of town.
Oh, of course. And that's why you're looking for the trust, or you're looking for, the way the state has set this up is that you can use your housing authorities. That's a different organization that you can to manage property. But some towns have done it, but when I was at Groton, they were very clear that they didn't want it, you know, it was managed either by the housing authority or it was managed by nonprofits. Okay, they didn't want it in-house in the town. Because of the liability and the cost that's involved from everything from prevailing wage and all that sort of thing. And the laws, they're very strict for municipalities and for state and municipal governments. So
let's assume that it's a nonprofit that partners.
That's fine.
Right? So what I want to do is hopefully have the town keep, again, all of the options on the table. What I envision is, and we're trying to get a meeting through the town, set up with Brady Sullivan, with their decision makers, to see what is it that they may be willing to do. If it's time, we may very well find that of the 45 families that are affected, that with some time, the housing market perhaps starts to cool off, as I'm personally seeing. Right? I've been inundated with closings for the month of August. Since last year until August, I have 2 closings scheduled for September. So there's a dramatic shift going on.
Yeah,
And when that happens, because the prices are too high, and these are market factors,
Yeah.
right? As the prices come down, there'll be a lot more inventory.
And that's
The
what
inventory
we're
actually
talking
causes the
about
prices to
time
go up,
first.
right? So time is certainly one thing that we're looking for from Brady. Looking to see if perhaps they may be interested in selling some of their units, right? It doesn't even have to be 45, but we can start to attack this in pieces. And I know that Brady Sullivan has also offered some financial incentives. So, you know, maybe there's a few of the families of the 45 that are at risk that can take advantage of some financial incentives that Brady has offered, Brady Sullivan, and utilize those to find other housing, right? But it's got to be a multi-pronged approach. And again, to say, you know, an eminent domain taking shouldn't be considered, it's too expensive, to take it off the table. Well, if we're playing poker, you might as well just show everybody what your hand is and see if you can win that hand. And that's not how you negotiate. what I would hope the town would do is to work with the Devon's Crest Tenants Association, develop a plan, again as an option of last resort, on what would an eminent domain taking look like if they did acquire, the town did, or the nonprofit on behalf of the town did acquire a certain number of units at Devon's Crest.
So,
Yeah, well, I mean, just, you know, again, if the nonprofit does acquire these units, it's not gonna be through eminent domain. I mean, just,
You could have the town doing the eminent domain taking and transferring ownership to the nonprofit.
okay,
Yep.
that's what I
Yep.
just wanted.
can I make a suggestion? As citizens of the town, if you're interested in an eminent domain, you can put something on the fall agenda and not look to the town to do that, because you believe it's something that the town will back and things like that. You can pull that together and put it on the fall agenda. I mean, as citizens of the town, you have that right, and you'll find out if there's support for it or not.
And the fall agenda is probably premature. It may be more like a special town meeting, that such an issue comes before the town for a vote. And I say that because before you bring something before the town, you need the plan.
Yeah.
And this is where we're looking for some help from the town in developing the plan. We don't have the expertise that the people at the town level do, such as yourself. You bring up the nonprofit, that's a great idea, right? But we need people to help walk us through the process. And I just get the sense that from the town level, the doors have already been closed. Okay? And it's basically talk to Brady Sullivan, and if they're not willing to do something, well, that's the best the town can offer. And I think that's a sell. Anyway.
So, my position is that Robert was saying that he feels from the phone calls he's fielding, and he says he's fielding a lot of phone calls he does not believe, but that doesn't mean that you as citizens can't go forward with this. And,
You need a plan to go forward with.
well,
There's a process, as you're aware.
yes,
You just don't go before town for taking and then not have the plan that you need to propose at that time. We also need to engage with Brady Sullivan.
yes,
We're
and
not-
that's the first step that we're doing.
That's the first of many steps.
Yeah.
But you gotta have everything in play at the same time. You know, there's an old adage at the law, you prepare for trial and you'll settle. If you prepare for settlement, you're gonna try the case and get caught with your pants down, right? I don't wanna prepare for settlement, I wanna prepare for trial. And that means we have to prepare each and every one of the options as if we're gonna go forward.
Exactly.
So really, let me just, you know, recap, all right, where it's like, all right, you're looking to have some, either consultant, which the whole thing behind, the funding for the trust, it's up to 30,000, the CPA funds. So with CPA funds, you really can't hire a consultant, right? So I just wanna, I'll double check, but the last time I checked, we were trying. So, trying to get somebody like that. I know, you know, that there are other programs, like Denise was talking about, you know, the mass housing, you got mass housing partnerships and things like that, where we might be able to reach out to them to see if they've got a housing toolbook, you know, those types of things to.
Exactly.
All right, hold on a second, so, you know, so if we can get, like, say, all the different options available, plus a plan B, okay? And, with that, see what steps might be needed, okay? Like, I know that, I see that there's, an individual here, Tara, in the crowd too as well. I started looking at, other, buildings within the town that could get renovated, you know, things like that. However, like, again, time is the first step, okay? Because even though we've got all these plans, it's gonna take years to implement it. So right now, it's finding time to keep people within their houses.
And, you know, you mentioned that the trust is working on a 106-unit project.
Well, this is one we're gonna be discussing, okay, today. This is just,
It would be helpful to know what's the timeline for that project.
again, we're just getting it tonight,
Yeah.
okay?
But what I'm saying, that's an option which we're back into negotiations with Brady Sullivan.
Mm-hmm.
And they realize that
Right.
the town's got something that maybe comes to fruition in 2 years.
Right.
Yep.
Is there something that
That's perfect.
Are they willing to wait, that perhaps we can get a subsidy from the state to help offset some of their expenses?
That's great.
To justify the wait for that period of time. We've got to be creative. And again,
Think outside the box.
we need to keep all
Nicely
the
done.
options open.
Nicely done.
I mean, I hear you, Connie, all right? And, when I stopped you first, with regards to cost, when you're talking to Senator Eldridge, coming up with the housing,
Yeah.
Ways and Means Committee, and he said that, they're gonna try to find funding for costs. What does that cost include? I mean, again, it's not just the purchasing of a building, but it also, is it going to be the renovation? Is it going to be the remediation? All this other, that is all going to come up with, say, additional costs. The other thing too that goes through my mind, you being part of, other negotiations, you have to talk to Brady Sullivan, but will Brady Sullivan say, okay, great, we can probably sell these properties for the $160,000 or whatever, one unit. With that, but we're gonna be losing all this income. Do they tack that on as well? Again, these are conversations about cost, all right? But these are, like, say, the things that are inside my mind, going, okay, when you start talking, to Senator Eldridge, when they're looking at costs, we have to make sure that we include what costs, because they're gonna be throwing stuff, and whatever. So, all right.
Plan
So
for everything.
prepare the plans, get all the different options and such. Keep talking to Senator Eldridge. Keep, talking to Brady Sullivan, keep them at the table, keep the town at the table, and see what we can go ahead and accomplish. But again, the first thing is, make sure you get extra time. Does that sound about right?
Yep. The time is.
It's of the essence. Time is number one.
Yes,
Right.
thank you.
Okay. Ken?
So, I'm curious about the 44 units, because I heard it was something, saying 80
Sure.
something units involved. So,
The tenants association consists of 45 families.
Okay, so-
We did get the data on who those
so
45
what I was gonna recommend maybe is that you said you needed to start with a plan. Do we have a plan of where exactly those units are located and the 44 units and how they sit there?
Yep.
Okay, but could you take the plan of the GIS system in town, the layout of the land, and the lots, and just say, okay, here's.
I've never been able to work with GIS.
I provided that information to the
I
town.
have to call for.
I was just,
Hi,
I was just gonna make a recommendation that we be able to get a look-see
Of what
at
they are.
where these 44 pieces
Yep.
fall.
Yep.
So starting from that, that's the base plan to me. Now I know where the 44
Sounds great.
units are.
That's a great
And then I
suggestion.
can think about, are they in the 6-unit buildings, are they in the 2-family buildings? Are they on lot 3 or lot 7? So
I-
I'm looking at the, like a
spread
planning
out.
board approach.
I'd love to help with
An
that.
approach to the neighborhood
Yeah.
that can isolate from my understanding better, and maybe other people understanding better. This is what we're talking about. So we're talking about this group of people who live in this location. And I'm thinking off the top of my head here, but having an approach like that, I think opens a little bit more of the conversation to Brady Sullivan as to the specifics, rather than just saying it's 44 people all over the place. We're looking to do something right here in this group. Maybe we can relocate these people temporarily and move them back. So we're looking at a plan that lays the whole project out. And-
Yes,
and
agree.
then I know I'll be able to understand it better then. I don't care who the names are, I really am interested in where the real estate is. And knowing where the real estate is, maybe then you're moving parts and pieces around a little more effectively. And you can speak, a little clearly, a little more clearly to this. And I can assure you that many of us in town have been thinking about this and talking amongst ourselves and trying to help. Even if it's not been in the public vein, there's been a lot of people that are trying to think about this and try to figure out a way to work it. So that's my own personal statement, but I would feel more comfortable understanding what the whole property looks like. And then be able to sit down and say to Brady Sullivan, look, this is a section. Maybe there's a way to approach it by sections, on some, I'm talking about phasing of sections and movements around, things like that. So if you could
Great.
do that,
I think
that would
that's
be a big help.
a great suggestion.
That's
You
great.
just gotta find someone who's good at
Well,
GIS.
I'm
Connie, I can help you, we can help you.
Yeah, that's easy.
Alright, well, alright, yeah, okay, we've got somebody who's gonna go ahead and be able to help. Also, I've got another,
Oh, I'd help too if you need help. I don't know how to use the system, but I'll help do anything you need.
Thank you, man.
Alright, hold on a second, I've got Sarah over here, who's
I've been
the town
doing,
resident.
I've been doing some research on.
Alright, Sarah, come
Oh, I'm
on up so
sorry.
you can introduce yourself. Okay, and we've got a lot on the agenda too, so.
I just wanted to say that.
Thank you.
Sarah, give.
Great job.
My name's Sarah Vidia, I live in Shore. I just wanted to say, I've been doing some research, on the GIS because of the cemetery article. And I actually believe I have several different renderings that would help you. If you want them, you can connect with me.
Sure.
I live up in Shore.
Alright, thank you so much.
We'll take everything. Yeah, everything you have.
Okay.
Anything.
Alright, so with that, again, we know our steps.
I found the article. Is it okay if I just come over and tell you what it is? And I just want to read
I'm sorry, when you're saying about what article?
the one that I was talking about for.
No, I can look it up. Again,
Okay.
we've got enough on the agenda.
All right.
I don't mean to make it sound that way.
No, that's
Since we
okay.
got an option, we can Google it.
Yeah.
Because you said it's a Lawrence project, correct?
Well, it's the name of the article is Baker announces affordable housing funding for Lawrence, but it also talks about subsidies and things that the state is going to do to help with financing. So it's not all about. I don't think it's all about nonprofits, and I totally agree with what Connie said, that we need to have variables and not just have one way out.
No, that's what I mean,
Yeah.
having the different, options. Okay, that sounds good.
Thank you guys.
All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and, we're going to close this item, and then we want to move on to the rental assistance program that we do need to, set up. That's why we want to make sure that we have you guys, come in first. Thank you.
Thank you.
People bring back your rental assistance stuff that we scanned on the